People don't quit jobs, they quit managers. And it isn't just something that people say. There's a lot of evidence behind this. To quote an academic article in the Journal of Leadership and Organizational Studies just a few years ago, the current research provides support for the prevailing folk wisdom that employees leave managers. And we found very much the same thing in some research we carried out ourselves earlier this year. We asked people how much they agreed or disagreed with the statement that you can see at the bottom of that chart. I'm looking for a new job. We also asked them to answer 8 questions relating to how supportive they felt their manager was, and added up their answers to produce an overall manager support scale, an overall scale of how supportive their manager was. And when we compared those 2 scores with 5.0 and the manager support scale, this is what we found. Perhaps not surprisingly, the more supportive people felt their manager was, the less likely they were, the less likely the employee was to be looking for a new job. Other research, other large-scale surveys are coming up with very similar results. The data you can see on your screen at the moment is from a survey of 2,000 people looking at what people said when they were asked why they were looking for a new job. They could choose more than one option, which is why obviously those percentages add up to more than 100%. And you can see on the chart there that the top 3 were first of all a toxic company culture, then low salary, and then poor management. So poor management was a direct cause of people leaving their job, as well as likely contributing quite a lot to that idea of a toxic company culture. And in a very large study in 2021, MIT researchers combed through 1.4 million, that's 1.4 million Glassdoor reviews. And again, the biggest contribution to workplace attrition was a toxic company culture. And although people will often say low salary is important, these researchers found that that toxic culture was 10 times more important than salary in motivating people to leave their role. And when they looked at that toxic culture in more detail, these 5 factors stood out. Toxic cultures, first of all, were non-inclusive. Now, we've talked about inclusion in previous webinars, and it covers those sorts of areas, but also more generally, inequities and perceived inequities in terms of gender, race, sexual orientation and identity, age and disability, and the effects of cronyism and nepotism. These cultures were more disrespectful. There's a lot of consideration, lack of courtesy, a lot of affording other people dignity. They included many unethical behaviors, dishonesty, not complying with regulations and laws even. They were more cutthroat. People will stab others in the back, metaphorically, not literally. There was ruthless competition, and they were abusive. There was bullying, there was harassment, and there was overt hostility. And if you think about what you can see there, a great deal of what you see in those last 4 areas may be to do with people's interpersonal style, their interpersonal behaviors, and especially the interpersonal behaviors of leaders and of managers, people with the power, people with the clout in an organization. So having a tool and a framework to understand interpersonal behavior is likely to be especially important for leaders.